Disagree and explain why. Disagreeing may seem like one of the simpler moves a writer can make, and it is often the first thing people associate with critical thinking. Disagreeing can also be the easiest way to generate an essay. Find something you can disagree with in what has been said or might be said about your topic, summarize it, and argue with it. But disagreement in fact poses hidden challenges. You need to do more than simply assert that you disagree with a particular view. You also have to offer persuasive reasons why you disagree. After all, disagreeing means more than adding the word not to what someone else has said. More than just saying, although they say women's rights are improving, I say women's rights are not improving. Such a response merely contradicts the view it responds to and fails to add anything interesting or new. To turn it into an argument, you need to give reasons to support what you say, because another's argument fails to take relevant factors into account. Because it is based on faulty or incomplete evidence, because it rests on questionable assumptions, or because it uses flawed logic, is contradictory, or overlooks what you take to be the real issue. To move the conversation forward, and indeed to justify your very act of writing, you need to demonstrate that you have something to contribute. You can even disagree by making what we call the duh move, in which you disagree not with the position itself, but with the assumption that it is a new or stunning revelation. Here is an example of such a move, used to open an essay on the state of American schools. According to a recent report by some researchers at Stanford University, high school students with college aspirations often lack crucial information on applying to college and on succeeding academically once they get there. Well, duh. It shouldn't take a Stanford research team to tell us that when it comes to succeeding academically, many students don't have a clue. Gerald, Graff, trickle-down obfuscation. Like all of the other moves discussed in this book, the duh move can be tailored to meet the needs of almost any writing situation. If you find the expression duh too brash to use with your intended audience, you can always dispense with the term itself and write something like, it is true that blank, but we already knew that. You can also disagree by making what we call the twisted move, in which you agree with the evidence that someone else has presented, but show through a twist of logic that this evidence actually supports your own contrary position. For example, X argues for stricter gun control legislation, saying that the crime rate is on the rise and that we need to restrict the circulation of guns. I agree that the crime rate is on the rise, but that's precisely why I oppose stricter gun control legislation. We need to own guns to protect ourselves against criminals. In this example of the twisted move, the writer agrees with X's claim that the crime rate is on the rise, but then argues that this increasing crime rate is in fact a valid reason for opposing gun control legislation. At times, you might be reluctant to express disagreement for any number of reasons, not wanting to be unpleasant, to hurt someone's feelings, or to make yourself vulnerable to being disagreed with in return. One of these reasons may in fact explain why the conference speaker we described at the start of Chapter 1 avoided mentioning the disagreement he had with other scholars until he was provoked to do so in the discussion that followed his talk. As much as we understand such fears of conflict and have experienced them ourselves, we nevertheless believe it is better to state our disagreements in frank yet considerate ways than to deny them. After all, suppressing disagreements doesn't make them go away. It only pushes them underground, where they can fester in private, unchecked. Nevertheless, disagreements do not need to take the form of personal put-downs. Furthermore, there is usually no reason to take issue with every aspect of someone else's views. You can single out for criticism only those aspects of what someone else has said that are troubling, and then agree with the rest. Although such an approach, as we will see later in this chapter, leads to the somewhat more complicated terrain of both agreeing and disagreeing at the same time.